Hello, friends and families. Welcome to the EDUCA DPS Podcast, where we inform families and connect communities. My name is Javier Ibarra, your host of the English version of this podcast. Today in the EDUCA studios, we have a very special guest. We have attorney Lupita Monclova with the Monclova Law Firm. Our topic is Know Your Immigration Rights. Attorney Monclova, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you, Javier. I'm so excited to be here. It's been a long time, so thank you guys for having me. And I'm super excited to teach our families about their rights.
I should tell our audience that this is not the first time that you've joined EDUCA and in this platform, but this is the first time you've joined us in these studios and in the podcast platform. So welcome back, but also welcome in.
My pleasure. I mean, I'm super excited. It's not the first time. I always love being with the EDUCA family, so thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So for our audience, I want to give them a little background about the topic. Undocumented individuals here in the United States may face significant concerns regarding deportations if policies are aggressively enforced. Many undocumented immigrants have U.S.-born children or other family members who are citizens or legal residents. Deportations could separate families, creating emotional and financial hardship. Today in the EDUCA DPS podcast, we're going to interview immigration attorney Lupita Monclova. So, Attorney Monclova, I want to ask the first thing, what are some fears our undocumented community is dealing with today?
Unfortunately, right now, our undocumented community is living in panic. We've seen so many executive orders in the past week, and our people are afraid of the family separation. They're afraid of being separated from their loved ones, coming back home and not seeing their parents. They're in fear of the raids. We keep hearing about the possibility of raids. We keep hearing about raids in different places. Their fear of going to work and being deported because they went to work. Their fear about this increased discrimination that we're seeing amongst our undocumented community and our Hispanic community in general, this anti-immigrant rhetoric and the policies and everything that's going on. People are just afraid. And it's very unfortunate. They're in panic, and that's why it's important that we are informed, we educate ourselves, and that we educate our children.
Absolutely, and that's part of what we're doing here today at the EDUCA DPS podcast, because this is our community, right? And so we want to be able to give our families and our students the resources, and that's why we brought in a professional like yourself to talk about this today. My second question for you is, what are my rights? What should I do if an immigration officer shows up at my house or workplace and asks for my documents or legal status?
And unfortunately, we're probably going to see this a lot, where immigration officials show up to your house or show up to your workplace and they ask for your status. The first thing to always remember and keep in mind is that you have the right to remain silent. And you don't have to discuss your immigration status, your citizenship status with anyone. You don't have to discuss it with the police. You don't have to discuss it with immigration agents. You don't need to say anything other than, I choose to remain silent and I want to speak to an attorney. It's super important because people need to know that famous phrase, everything that you say can be used against you, including your immigration status. And that's why people need to know they have the right to remain silent.
Very important information, because I think that it's a common misconception that you don't have rights. If you're undocumented in this country, you don't have rights, and that's just simply not true. Like, you do have rights, and one of them is not to be taken advantage of in a situation where you are scared, where the emotions are running high. And so it's important for us to know them. So thank you for sharing that. My next question is, I often hear these words in the news, probable cause. What is probable cause in this term and when we're talking about immigration?
That's a very important question, because immigration officials cannot detain you or cannot question you unless they have probable cause. And probable cause means that they have reasonable belief, that they have evidence to believe that you are in this country violating the laws. So that is probable cause or reasonable suspicion goes beyond just the color of your skin. That means that because immigration is driving by and they see a person of color, of brown skin, dark skin, they can immediately assume, or because the way that the person's dressed, they can assume that, oh, this person must be undocumented. And then later come and intimidate this person, ask them questions, try to search them, try to harass them. And that's why it is important to exercise your rights, because if the only reason they came to you is because of the color of your skin or where, the way that you look, then that is violating your constitutional rights. And that is where we come in, because we can fight to exclude any evidence that what was obtained illegally, such as information about your immigration status. They cannot come and question you if they don't have probable cause, anything beyond the color of your skin. They can't come and question you, and that is why you remain silent, because they didn't have any reason to believe that you're here in the country committing a crime.
Does that happen? Are there times where officials ask you for documentation without probable cause?
It happens a lot, and it's going to happen a lot. Unfortunately, it's going to continue happening where, for example, let's say they're driving by and it's day labor situation, and we see a lot of laborers outside, and they all look Hispanic, they're all dark skinned, they're ready to work, and immigration may pass by and think, oh, because these people are all together looking for work, in work clothes, and they look brown, then they might be undocumented, and then they will start questioning them or probably try to take them, but they had no reason to believe that they were undocumented other than the color of their skin. And that is going to continue happening at workplaces, maybe in just different situations. And that is why people need to know that they have that right to remain silent and say, I will not share my information, I will not share my immigration status with you, I choose to remain silent.
These, and I should have prefaced this at the beginning of the show, but the conversation, if you're listening now and haven't noticed yet, but these are heavy questions, this is a heavy topic, right? And it's a very serious topic. And so I know that some of the answers or the things that we're talking about might make some folks uncomfortable, but we brought on a professional like yourself in order to alleviate that, right? Because what you're talking about isn't hearsay. It's things that you are working with every single day in your law firm. And so I want to remind our audience of that and say, hey, this is a very heavy topic, but it's a topic that, we feel compelled to bring resources to the community, because that's what this show is about.
Yes, we're seeing that, and we've had cases where people get detained by immigration. They had no reason to believe that they were here in the country without documentation. They get detained. The problem is, for us attorneys, is that then the person later volunteers their immigration status. They volunteer their information. They volunteer all their history. And so when we try to fight that information, immigration will say, well, you know what? This person told me that they were undocumented, and so they gave me that information voluntarily. But when we have a situation where they had no reason to believe, where the person chose to remain silent, where the person said, I don't consent to a search of my body, and even then immigration continued, they searched them, they obtained information about their status, then as attorneys we can file motions to dismiss all the information that was obtained illegally, which is the information regarding their status that was obtained without their consent.
We should also probably mention that you're from this community, right? You grew up here, you're a DPS alum, right? And your law firm is in the city of Denver. And so you are not only a part of the community, but you are serving the community. Am I right?
Exactly. I'm a proud graduate of Horace Mann Middle School and West High School. I'm a proud cowboy, and I grew up in Westwood in Denver, and that is where my office is. I knew that I wanted to continue serving my community, and when I graduated from law school, I started my business fresh out of law school, and I wanted to go back to Westwood, and that is where my office is.
I think it's so beneficial to have someone like you who grew up in this neighborhood or in this community and is serving this community, because it's that for you, by you, right? And so it's very informational. I have a question, a follow-up question, if I may, that goes along with what we were talking about earlier. Can immigration officers enter my house, and what are the circumstances which they can enter your house?
they cannot enter your house without a warrant. And it is very important because, again, a lot of the problems that we see is that our people, when someone knocks at their door, immigration comes to their door, they will open the door and say, welcome to my house. Open the door, let them in, tell them about everyone that's in that house, tell them about their immigration status, and then that is when they volunteer that information and it's legal for immigration to use it. But when immigration comes, what you need to do is when they knock at your door, you need to first ask for a warrant. And that warrant needs to be signed by a judge. Now, a fun fact is that, first of all, immigration will rarely have a warrant, but if they do, it is usually probably 95% or more of the time is not signed by a judge. It's signed by officials, and there are not judges. So what the person needs to say is, do you have a warrant to enter into my house? If immigration says, yes, we do, then say, okay, then put it under the door or put it inside the mailbox. The person gets to see the warrant and make sure that it's signed by a judge. And if it's not signed by a judge, then the person can say, I refuse that you enter my house because you don't have a warrant. Now, if immigration does have a warrant signed by a judge, make sure that it says they have the authority to enter your house, because the majority of warrants are also for people to arrest a person, not to go inside your home. So if you see that warrant that's signed by a judge, then you need to look and see, okay, is it to enter my house or is it to arrest someone? If it is to arrest someone, then if the person is there, then you say, this person will be coming outside. You do not have permission to enter my house. If the person is not in your house, then you say, this person is not in my house. You do not have permission to enter.
I have a question for you, very important. What are some of the practical steps to prepare in case I may face a deportation?
First and foremost, it is super important for people to start seeing an attorney and ask about your eligibility, because a lot of people that are here in the country may be eligible for some type of relief, residency, humanitarian visa, and they're not aware of it. You'd be surprised how many people are eligible, but they don't know because they haven't spoken to an attorney. So it's really important that people start speaking to an attorney to see if they're eligible for something. It's really important also to save some money in case you're eligible. You know, you can apply, you can pay for an attorney, or if God forbid you are detained by immigration, then you at least have money to cover your family's expenses. It's important to create a family preparedness plan, to assign a trusted individual to take care of your children, to gather documentation, birth certificates, prove that you've been here for a while, passports, prove that you have the residence in the U.S., you've established the residence, bank records. It's important to have all this information gathered in a safe place in case something happens. Then you can have a trusted individual take that information to your attorney so that they can speed up the process of letting you out of the immigration custody or of helping you with your case. And very important to continue staying informed and attending all these Know Your Rights presentations.
Wow, so much to prepare for, but it's important. It's important for our families to know what to do just in case, right? We have prepared or readiness plans for other types of situations in our life. This just happens to be another one. Attorney Monclova, my next question for you is, so recently I was watching the news and heard them say that DACA recipients may qualify to apply for permanent residency if they are claimed by a qualifying relative that is a U.S. citizen. What does that look like?
So we have a lot of our DACA beneficiaries that may have entered legally or may have traveled outside the country on advanced parole and then now can return to the country and now have a legal entry. If a DACA recipient has a legal entry and has a child that's 21 or older that's a U.S. citizen, or has a spouse that's a U.S. citizen, the majority of the time they are eligible to apply for a green card. They don't have to leave the country and they don't have to ask for a waiver, but a lot of people don't know this. And so if you are a DACA recipient and you have a legal entry and you have a child that's 21 or older that is a U.S. citizen, or a spouse that's a U.S. citizen, contact an attorney immediately, because you may be eligible for a benefit for a green card, and that way you don't have to worry about renewing DACA or this roller coaster that we're going through with DACA.
I keep going back to that saying, knowledge is power. And the more you know, the more power you have. And this is the theme of this show, because the answers that you're giving us really give, I feel, the community a sense of empowerment in order to know, okay, I'm in this situation, but here's what I can do about it. Here's how I can help. Here's other people that I may know. And so I want to thank you for that. I have a personal, well, call it a personal question, but it's more about the daily work that you do at your law firm, right? We've talked about immigration rights, but now I want to get into the weeds of what you're doing at your law firm. So let's say you're in court with clients, and you are quite often. What are some things that you suggest undocumented folks don't do in order to avoid getting exposed to the proceedings of immigration or potential deportation?
So it's an interesting question, because a lot of people that have an immigration hearing don't realize that they are in deportation proceedings and that the government wants to deport them. So it's very important to know that if you have an immigration hearing, a hearing before a judge, an immigration judge, it's because the government wants to deport you and you need to get an attorney. Now, to stay out of, to stay out of this, deportation proceedings, or one of the main things that we tell clients is, please make sure to take care of your record. Don't get into trouble with the police, because that's usually how a lot of people end up in these proceedings before a judge where the government is trying to deport them. Take care of your record. Don't get in trouble. Don't be around people that are known to be troublemakers or are doing bad things, because then that, sadly can then drag you along with it. We've had clients that get stopped because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. So it's very important to take care of your record. And also super important, don't lie. Don't lie to immigration. You have the right to remain silent, but that doesn't mean that you lie or show false documentation.
Attorney Monclova, is there anything else that I didn't get to ask you, but that you want to address or give resources to our community? The important thing that I want to emphasize is to make sure that we stay informed, and it's time to inform ourselves, and most importantly, to inform our children, because our children need to be educated about their rights. They need to be educated about their right not to talk to adults, not to help adults. If an adult comes and an officer comes and say, I need your help, can you give me this information? Our kids need to know to say, no, I will not talk to you unless my parents are here. They need to know that they don't open the door for anyone. It doesn't matter who it is. Someone comes knock at their door, they're not opening the door, they're not providing information, and they're not giving any information for sure about anyone's status. Our children need to be educated, and the time to educate them is now. Attorney Monclova, I just want to say thank you for joining us here today, for giving us all of this information and these resources, because I think it's such an important part for our community to understand. It affects our DPS community, it affects our Denver community. So thank you so much for coming by. Thank you for having me, and it was an honor being here. Well, friends and families, this concludes our EDUCA DPS podcast just for today. A big thank you to our very special guest, immigration attorney Lupita Monclova, for sharing this important information. I'd like to ask all of you who made it this far and are listening to please share this content, because that is the best way to get this content out there. Or you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at Denver Public Schools Plus, where you can find all of this EDUCA content and more of our great multimedia productions. You can also find us on all of your major podcast platforms. Just search for the Denver Public Schools Podcast Network. Here at the EDUCA Studios, we want to start off with gratitude, and our gratitude goes to the entire communications department, and also a big thank you to our proud Superintendent of Denver Public Schools, Dr. Alex Marrero, for his continued support to the EDUCA DPS podcast and all of our multimedia productions. Don't forget to tune in into our EDUCA DPS podcast, where the learning journey continues. And please remember to tell your children more often, I believe in you and I know you can do it. My name is Javier Ibarra. Until next time.